8 months pregnant. My body felt heavy, swollen, but my heart was strangely light that morning. I had told myself that I was finally free. Free from the years of humiliation, the whispered insults behind closed doors, the endless shame of being labeled barren. I had built a new life, one step at a time, even if it meant doing it alone. That day, I was at the city hospital for a routine checkup. The waiting area was crowded, voices echoing off the sterile walls. I sat in a corner, rubbing my belly gently, whispering to the life inside me. "We're almost there, baby. Just a few more weeks, and I'll finally hold you." Then I heard a voice I thought I'd never have to hear again. "Is that her?" I froze. My breath caught in my throat, as if the air itself had betrayed me. Slowly, painfully, I lifted my eyes. There he was. Ethan, my ex-husband, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, his arrogance filling the room before his words even did. His arm was wrapped around a woman's waist. And when she turned her head, my heart shattered again, though I thought it couldn't possibly break more than it already had. It was Claire, my best friend, or at least the woman I once thought was. The room seemed to tilt. My palms went cold and clammy. I gripped the edge of the chair, trying not to collapse under the weight of their presence. Ethan's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Loud enough for everyone around to hear," he said. Well, look who it is, the woman who couldn't give me a family, and now, what is this, a borrowed belly?" The words sliced through me, sharper than any knife. People turned to look, their gazes full of curiosity, pity, some even amusement. My cheeks burned hot and shame crawled over my skin. Claire leaned into him, her hand brushing his chest. "Don't be so harsh, Ethan," she said sweetly, though her eyes glittered with triumph. Maybe she found another man desperate enough. Laughter, low, mocking, poisonous. I wanted to disappear. The humiliation was suffocating, pressing down on me as every eye in the waiting room pierced through my soul. I could barely breathe. But then, as Ethan's words echoed in my head, something stirred deep inside me, a flicker. Not anger, not yet. Just the faintest whisper of defiance. Because I knew something they didn't. Something that would one day silence their cruel laughter. The hidden truth. As I sat there trembling, I placed both hands protectively over my swollen belly. This child, my child, was no accident. No mistake. No gift from a man who thought I was worthless. I had taken matters into my own hands. It was my egg, my choice, my fight. And the sperm came from a donor at the clinic, a faceless man who had given me the chance Ethan swore I would never have. Ethan had called me broken, defective, less than a woman. I had begged him once, pleaded, endured every insult just to keep our marriage alive. But he threw me away like garbage. He didn't just leave, he shattered me, making sure I knew I was nothing in his eyes. And Claire, the woman who held my secrets, who cried with me when I couldn't conceive, who promised she would always stand by me. There she was in his arms, her smile wide, her eyes sharp, relishing my humiliation. But they didn't know. Not yet. This life inside me wasn't proof of my weakness. It was proof of my strength, my resilience. The very thing they mocked me for, the impossibility of me ever being a mother, was now the beating heart beneath my hands. I swallowed hard, fighting the tears that blurred my vision. Around us, whispers buzzed. Some pitied me, some judged, and Ethan basked in it, feeding off my silence. He leaned closer, voice dripping venom. "Tell me, who's the father? Or do you even know?" Something inside me cracked. My lips trembled, but I forced the words out, steady and low. "That's none of your business anymore." The room stilled. His smile faltered for just a second, as if he didn't expect me to respond. I didn't explain. I didn't owe him that. Not here, not now. Let him think what he wanted, let them laugh, because soon enough, the truth would break them. I shifted, pushing myself to stand, though my legs wobbled beneath me. The nurse called my name, saving me from further torment. I walked past Ethan and Claire, my head held as high as my trembling body would allow. My heart was still breaking, but beneath the wreckage, something new was forming. Resolve. They thought I was defeated. They thought I was still the same broken woman Ethan had thrown away. But they had no idea. This wasn't the end of my story. As the nurse guided me down the hall, I glanced back one last time. Ethan's eyes lingered on me, something dark flickering in them. Claire whispered something in his ear, and they both laughed again. I turned away, pressing a hand against my belly. "They don't know, baby," I whispered. "But they will." And in that moment, I realized the humiliation I felt today was only the beginning of something much bigger. Something neither Ethan nor Claire would ever see coming. My name is Isabella Hayes, but most people used to call me Bella. I always thought it was a soft name, fragile almost, like glass that could shatter with one wrong touch. Maybe that's why it fit me so well back then. I grew up in a small town outside of Chicago, in a house that smelled like fresh bread and laundry detergent. My mother was a school teacher, my father a mechanic. We didn't have much, but we had enough. And more importantly, we had love. I thought that foundation would protect me forever. But love, I learned, isn't always enough. When I met Ethan, I was 24, fresh out of college with a degree in business administration and a heart full of dreams. He was magnetic, the kind of man who could walk into a room and make everyone look his way. Confident, charming, ambitious. To a girl like me who had never been noticed, he was a universe opening up. I fell fast. Too fast. Within a year, we were married, and for a while it was everything I thought love was supposed to be. Dinners together, whispered promises, plans for a future. But the fairy tale cracked quickly, in ways I didn't see coming. The first year he started asking about children. "When will you give me a son, Bella?" His voice was teasing at first, playful, but when months turned into years, the jokes hardened into accusations. "What's wrong with you? Every other woman can do it. Why can't you?" I tried. God, I tried. Fertility treatments, endless doctor visits, prayers whispered into my pillow at night when Ethan was asleep. And every time the test came back negative, it felt like a piece of me died. Ethan didn't comfort me. He blamed me. He tore me apart with words sharper than knives. "You're not even a real woman," he spat once, when the anger consumed him. That night, I locked myself in the bathroom and cried until I couldn't breathe. Claire was there for me back then. She held me while I sobbed, brought me tea, told me I wasn't broken. She promised she'd never leave me, that she'd always be my family, even if Ethan wasn't. I believed her. I trusted her more than I trusted myself. But people lie, and sometimes they lie so well you don't see the betrayal until it's already cut you to pieces. When Ethan finally filed for divorce, I didn't fight it. I didn't have the strength. I signed the papers with shaking hands, my chest hollow, my identity ripped away. For years I had been Ethan's wife. Without him, who was I? A woman who couldn't have children. A failure. A disappointment. That was the story I told myself every day. It nearly destroyed me. But rock bottom has a strange way of forcing you to choose. Stay buried or crawl out. I chose to crawl. I poured myself into work, taking a position as an administrative manager at a local design firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I kept my head down, kept my circle small, avoided anything that reminded me of Ethan or Claire. Yet every night when I came home to my silent apartment, the ache remained. The ache of a dream stolen. The ache of motherhood denied. Until one day, I realized I didn't need Ethan to give me what I wanted most. I didn't need any man. I could do this on my own. Walking into the fertility clinic was the scariest thing I'd ever done. My hands shook when I signed the forms. My heart raced as I chose a donor from a faceless list of profiles. But beneath the fear, there was something else. Hope. And when the test came back positive, when the doctor told me I was pregnant, I felt like I had been reborn. For the first time in years, I wasn't broken. I wasn't a failure. I was a mother. Now, 8 months later, as I waddle through life with swollen ankles and backaches, I carry more than just a child. I carry proof that Ethan was wrong. Proof that I am stronger than the names he called me. Proof that even the most broken glass can be remade into something beautiful. Still, the scars remain. I flinch when strangers ask about the father. I avoid questions about my past. I live in the shadow of old wounds, and sometimes, when I wake in the middle of the night, I can still hear Ethan's voice in my head. "You'll never be enough." But I look down at my belly, feel the little kicks, and whisper back, "I am enough, and you will know it soon." Because seeing Ethan again, seeing him with Claire, wasn't just a coincidence. I can feel it in my bones. It was a warning, a sign that the past I thought I had buried wasn't done with me yet. And maybe, just maybe, neither was I. After that day at the hospital, I couldn't shake the feeling that fate was pulling strings I didn't understand. For years, I had lived quietly, avoiding the circles where Ethan and Claire thrived. But suddenly, it seemed impossible to escape them. The heart of my world now was Riverside Women's Center, the clinic where I received my prenatal care. It was more than just a medical facility, it had become a sanctuary. The nurses knew my name, the doctors treated me with kindness, and other expectant mothers greeted me with knowing smiles in the waiting room. It was the one place I didn't feel like an outcast. But Riverside wasn't just a clinic. It was also connected to the community foundation where I worked part-time. My firm had recently partnered with the foundation to manage a fundraising gala for maternal health programs, and as the administrative manager, I couldn't just stay behind the scenes. I had to be there. I had to face the crowd. At first, I thought it would be simple. Numbers, logistics, paperwork. I could hide in the background while others mingled under chandeliers and clinked glasses. But then the guest list landed on my desk. My eyes froze on two names, Ethan Miller and Claire Bennett. I felt the blood drain from my face. Claire had married Ethan after the divorce, apparently. And now they were donors, supporters of the very cause I was helping to promote. Life has a cruel sense of humor. The gala would be held at the Grand Aurora Hotel, a towering glass building downtown. Golden chandeliers, mirrored walls, long velvet curtains. The kind of place where Ethan thrived, where his arrogance could shine under the lights, where Claire could flaunt her stolen role as his wife. And me? I would be there too. 8 months pregnant, waddling through the crowd, the living embodiment of everything they swore I could never be. The irony twisted my stomach. But beneath the fear, I felt something else brewing. An opportunity. Because a gala wasn't just a social event. It was a stage, and every stage has an audience. Still, I couldn't ignore the danger. Ethan wasn't the kind of man to let humiliation slide. He lived for control, for power. If he discovered the truth, that I had chosen to bring this child into the world without him, he would use it, twist it, turn it into another weapon against me. And Claire, I shuddered. Claire knew too much. She had been there for every failed pregnancy test, every tear-stained night. She knew my darkest fears, my deepest shame. If she ever suspected how I had found my way back to motherhood, she wouldn't hesitate to expose it. The weeks leading up to the gala were a blur of meetings and preparations. I buried myself in work, double-checking seating charts, finalizing budgets, pretending the butterflies in my stomach were from the pregnancy and not from the storm I knew was coming. At night, I would sit by the window in my small apartment, hand on my belly, watching the city lights flicker. "We'll get through this," I whispered to my unborn child. "No matter what happens, you're my light, my proof, my second chance." But deep down, I knew the gala wasn't just about fundraising. It would be the place where my past and my present collided, where old wounds would be ripped open under crystal chandeliers and champagne flutes. And I couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was only just beginning. The night of the gala arrived. The Grand Aurora Hotel glowed like a palace against the city skyline, its glass walls reflecting golden light into the night. Inside, everything shimmered. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, the soft hum of violins. I had dressed as best as I could in my condition. A flowing navy gown that draped over my swollen belly, silver flats instead of heels. My hair was pulled into a loose bun, strands framing my tired face. I didn't look glamorous, not compared to the women around me in their sleek gowns and perfect makeup. But I reminded myself why I was there. Not for them. Not for Ethan. For me. For my child. The moment I stepped into the ballroom, I felt it. The shift in air, the prickle of eyes on my back. And then I saw them. Ethan and Claire. He looked every bit the polished businessman. Dark suit, silk tie, posture radiating power. Claire glittered beside him, draped in emerald satin, diamonds catching the light. Her hand rested possessively on his chest, her smile sharp as glass. They saw me instantly. Of course they did. And just like at the hospital, Ethan's lips curled into that cruel smirk I knew too well. "Well, if it isn't Isabella," he said, loud enough for nearby guests to turn. "I didn't expect to see you here. Who let you in?" A ripple of laughter followed, soft but cutting. I clenched my fists at my sides, nails digging into my palms. Claire leaned in, voice dripping with mock sweetness. "She works here, Ethan. Didn't you know? Poor thing. She's probably fetching drinks or managing tables." The words stung, not because they were true, but because they came from her. My best friend. My sister and everything but blood. I opened my mouth to respond, but Claire wasn't done. She raised her glass, her eyes gleaming. I suppose we should thank you, Bella. If you hadn't failed, Ethan and I might never have found each other. The cruelty of it stole my breath. My knees wobbled, and for a second I thought I might collapse. The guests around us watched, some whispering, some smirking. My humiliation was their entertainment. But in the haze of shame, something caught my attention. A slip. A mistake. Claire's words weren't casual, they were rehearsed, almost deliberate. And Ethan's reaction wasn't one of surprise. He didn't deny it. He didn't even flinch. Instead, he placed his hand over hers, squeezing as if sealing a pact. And suddenly, I saw it. The betrayal hadn't been an accident. Claire hadn't fallen for Ethan after my marriage ended. She had been with him before. Maybe long before. The memories stabbed at me. Nights when Claire encouraged me to work late, while she insisted she'd keep Ethan company. Vacations she mysteriously missed, only for Ethan to claim business kept him home. The puzzle pieces snapped into place, forming a picture too ugly to look at. I had been a fool. A blind, trusting fool. But the worst part wasn't that they betrayed me, it was that they thrived because of it. Now they stood in front of me, side by side, flaunting their union like a prize won from my suffering. I forced a shaky breath. You always wanted what was mine, didn't you, Claire? For a moment, her mask slipped. Her smile faltered, eyes narrowing just slightly before she recovered. Don't flatter yourself, Bella. Ethan chose me. Maybe he just realized I was the better woman. Ethan chuckled, his arm tightening around her waist. And look at you now. 8 months pregnant, waddling around like a charity case. Tell me, do you even know who the father is? The laughter swelled again. My throat burned, my heart pounded, but this time I didn't lower my eyes. I let the humiliation wash over me, and I stored it away. Every cruel word, every mocking glance. Because while they thought they were breaking me, they were showing me their weakness. Ethan needed control. He needed people to see him as powerful, untouchable. Claire needed validation. She craved the spotlight, the acknowledgement that she had won. And both of them needed me humiliated, small, silenced. But I wasn't that woman anymore. Not completely. I placed my hand on my belly, steadying myself, and whispered so softly only I could hear. One day, you'll both regret this. And for the first time, instead of feeling broken, I felt something sharper. The beginnings of fire. The gala had reached its peak. Waiters weaved through the ballroom with silver trays. Glasses clinked, laughter rose and fell like waves. From the stage, the host thanked the donors, praising their generosity. And of course, Ethan and Claire sat front and center, glowing under the spotlight, as if they owned the night. I had done my best to avoid them since our earlier exchange, hiding behind my role as a staff member. I checked schedules, adjusted seating charts, anything to keep my mind occupied. But fate wasn't done with me. Isabella Hayes, please join us on stage. The words echoed through the microphone, silencing the chatter. My blood froze. The host smiled warmly, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. Miss Hayes has been instrumental in organizing tonight's event. Let's give her a round of applause. Applause thundered through the ballroom. I felt every eye turn toward me, felt the weight of their gaze on my swollen belly. My legs trembled as I walked to the stage, clutching the railing for balance. I told myself it was just a thank you, nothing more. I could smile, nod, and retreat. But Ethan never let me walk away that easily. As I reached the stage, he stood too, guiding Claire to her feet. Together, they approached the microphone. My stomach knotted. This wasn't on the program. Ethan took the mic, his voice smooth and commanding. What a touching evening, isn't it? Celebrating the beauty of motherhood, the miracle of family. He glanced at me, a cruel glint in his eyes. Some of us are blessed beyond measure. The audience clapped politely. Claire leaned in, her smile wide, her words sharp as razors. And some of us have to find creative ways. Laughter rippled through the room. My cheeks burned. I wanted to disappear. Ethan wasn't done. He motioned toward me, his voice booming through the speakers. You all know Isabella, my ex-wife. Years we spent together, and not once could she give me what every man wants most, a child. He paused, letting the words sink in. Gasps, whispers. But now, look at her. Pregnant, 8 months along, and yet, no father in sight. The ballroom erupted in murmurs. Some eyes widened in shock, others narrowed in judgment. My throat tightened. I tried to speak, but the words stuck. Claire stepped forward, her hand resting on her stomach as if mocking me. It does make one wonder, doesn't it? Who's the father? Or maybe, is there even one at all? The crowd laughed, champagne glasses clinked, a spotlight bore down on me, hot and merciless. I stood frozen, my hands trembling as they clutched my belly. The humiliation was unbearable, slicing deeper than any insult before. They weren't just mocking me privately anymore, they had turned my deepest wound into entertainment for an entire ballroom. For a moment, I thought I might faint. My knees buckled, the room spinning. But then I felt it, a sharp kick from inside me. My baby. My proof. My strength. I straightened, forcing air into my lungs. I met Ethan's gaze, then Claire's. My voice shook, but I managed to speak. You can laugh all you want, but this child is mine, and nothing you say can take that away. The room hushed. For a flicker of a second, I saw it. Ethan's smirk faltering, Claire's smile tightening. They hadn't expected me to fight back. But before I could say more, the host awkwardly stepped in, thanking everyone again and moving the program along. The moment passed, but the damage was done. I had been stripped bare before them all. As I walked off the stage, whispers followed me like shadows. No husband? Whose baby is it? Pathetic. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of them. I reached the edge of the ballroom, pressing a hand to my belly. We'll survive this, I whispered. We have to. But deep inside, I knew something had shifted. Ethan and Claire hadn't just humiliated me, they had declared war. And I would not stay their victim forever. When I got home from the gala that night, I didn't bother turning on the lights. I dropped my bag by the door, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed onto the couch. The silence was deafening, pressing against my ears until it hurt. And then the tears came. I sobbed like I hadn't sobbed in years, ugly. Heaving sobs that tore through my chest and left me gasping for air. My makeup smeared, my dress wrinkled, my swollen feet throbbing. 8 months pregnant, and I had never felt more alone. Their voices echoed in my head. Who's the father? Not even a real woman. Pathetic. I curled into myself, cradling my belly, whispering apologies to my child. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry you have to feel this. I promised I'd protect you, but I can't even protect myself. The next morning, the whispers had already spread beyond the ballroom. Social media posts, gossip columns, anonymous comments, photos of me on stage, belly round beneath the navy gown, Ethan's mocking words twisted into cruel captions. Ethan's barren ex now mysteriously pregnant. Scandal or miracle? Who's the daddy? Sources say she's hiding something. Every headline stabbed deeper. Every comment confirmed my worst fears, that I would always be defined by what Ethan said I was. Broken. Less. At work, the stares were unbearable. Colleagues who once smiled now whispered behind their hands. My boss offered sympathy, but I could see the calculation in his eyes. A scandal wasn't good for business. Even at the clinic, my sanctuary felt tainted. A nurse hesitated before calling my name, as if my presence embarrassed her. Another patient whispered to her friend, not knowing I could hear. That's her, the one they talked about on the news. I wanted to disappear, to run away to some small town where no one knew me, where I could give birth in peace and raise my child far from the poison of Ethan and Claire. But running wouldn't erase the shame. Running wouldn't silence the whispers. And worse, the stress began to take a toll on my body. My blood pressure rose. My doctor frowned at the charts, warning me to rest, to stay calm. But how could I, when every breath felt like drowning? One night, I woke with sharp pains stabbing my side. Panic surged. I rushed to the hospital, clutching my belly, praying my baby was safe. Hours later, the doctors reassured me it was just stress. But their warning was clear. You need to protect yourself, Isabella, or your child will suffer for it. That night, lying in the hospital bed, I felt utterly defeated. I had fought so hard to bring this child into the world, and now my own pain threatened to steal it away. And then, a voice. Bella? I turned, startled. Standing in the doorway was Dr. Harris, one of the younger physicians at Riverside. He had always been kind, professional, but now there was something different in his eyes. Concern? Maybe even anger. I shouldn't say this, he began, hesitating, but I was at the gala. I saw what Ethan and Claire did to you, and you need to know something. My breath caught. What? He glanced around, lowering his voice. Ethan isn't the man he pretends to be. The foundation, the money he donated. It's not clean. There are rumors, investigations even. I don't know the details, but I know enough to say this: he's not untouchable. My heart pounded. For the first time in days, the crushing weight on my chest lifted, just slightly. Ethan wasn't invincible. There were cracks in his perfect facade. And maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as powerless as I thought. After Dr. Harris's warning, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in my hospital bed, the monitors beeping steadily beside me, my baby shifting restlessly inside me as if sensing my unease. Ethan isn't untouchable. The words echoed in my mind, louder than any insult he had ever thrown at me. For years I had believed Ethan was invincible, that no matter what he did, he would always come out on top. But now, for the first time, I saw a possibility. A weakness. The next morning, when I was discharged, I didn't go straight home. Instead, I stopped by the community foundation office. My hands shook as I rifled through the filing cabinets, searching for the donor lists, the financial records Ethan had so proudly flaunted at the gala. And then I found it. Buried beneath invoices and receipts was a contract. Ethan's signature sprawled across the bottom, his company listed as the primary sponsor. But the numbers didn't add up. Funds had been rerouted, donations recycled through shell organizations, amounts inflated far beyond what was actually given. It was fraud. And it was enough to destroy him. My heart raced as I photocopied the pages, slipping them into my bag. For the first time in years, I felt powerful. My hands still trembled, but it wasn't from fear. It was adrenaline. But the twist didn't end there. Later that afternoon, as I left the office, I spotted Claire across the street. She was on her phone, pacing, her expression tight. I ducked behind a parked car, curiosity prickling. Her voice carried just enough for me to catch snippets. "I don't care what Ethan thinks, he promised me more than this. I won't be second again." Second? The word hit me like a stone. Claire had always craved attention, but to hear her talk like this, to hear frustration in her voice, it was a crack in the perfect facade she and Ethan displayed. I pulled out my phone, hitting record. Her words weren't much, but they hinted at something deeper, something broken in their perfect little union. That night, back in my apartment, I spread the documents across my kitchen table. Fraudulent contracts, Claire's recorded words, pieces of a puzzle I didn't fully understand yet. I placed a hand on my belly, whispering to my child, "We're not powerless anymore. We have something they can't take away." But with the flicker of hope came a new fear. Because if I could see Ethan's weakness, then he could see mine. And if Claire's mask was slipping, then she was more dangerous than ever. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about survival. This was about war. And war required strategy. The days after I discovered Ethan's fraudulent contracts were a blur of fear and adrenaline. I kept the photocopies hidden in a locked drawer, checking on them like they were gold, because to me, they were. They were the first weapon I'd ever had against him. But I knew one thing. If I had uncovered those documents, then others could too. And if Ethan sensed even a hint of suspicion, he would bury the evidence, silence anyone who dared to speak. I needed more. Something undeniable. Something he couldn't twist or explain away. That chance came sooner than I expected. One evening, exhausted from another restless day, I stopped by the clinic for a late appointment. The waiting room was nearly empty, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. As I sat down, I noticed Claire in the corner, speaking hurriedly to a man in a dark suit. My first instinct was to turn away to avoid her entirely, but then I heard her voice, low, sharp, desperate. "You promised me, David. If Ethan goes down, I don't go down with him. I have too much at stake." My pulse spiked. I gripped the armrest, straining to hear more. The man replied, his tone clipped. "Then keep your mouth shut. If you talk, you're finished, both of you." Claire's face paled. She nodded quickly, her hands trembling as she adjusted her purse. Moments later, she swept out of the room, her heels clicking against the tile. I sat frozen. Claire was scared. And if Claire was scared, that meant Ethan's empire was far more fragile than it looked. I left the clinic shaken, my mind racing. Who was David? What hold did Ethan have over Claire? And what secret could possibly terrify her? The woman who once relished in my suffering enough to make her look like a cornered animal. That night, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed with a new email. No sender listed, just one word in the subject line, proof. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were scanned copies of bank transfers, property deeds, hidden accounts, all tied to Ethan. Money funneled through offshore banks, shell companies, even charities. It wasn't just fraud, it was laundering. Attached at the end was a note: "He's not who everyone thinks he is. Be careful." No name, no explanation, just the documents. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out the silence of the apartment. This was bigger than I had imagined. Ethan wasn't just a cruel husband. He was a criminal, and someone on the inside, wanted me to know. For the first time, the fear I carried shifted into something sharper, something like power. Because now I held not just one weapon, but two. Ethan's fraud, Claire's fear. Together, they painted a picture strong enough to crack the perfect mask they wore in public. I pressed a hand to my belly, whispering into the quiet. "We're closer, baby, closer to ending this, to ending him." But even as the words left my lips, I knew the danger was growing. Whoever sent that email had taken a risk. And if Ethan discovered I had those files, he wouldn't hesitate to destroy me. Still, for the first time in years, I wasn't trembling in his shadow. For the first time, I believed I could win. And the thought of that, of Ethan and Claire's empire crumbling before the world, was enough to ignite a fire so fierce it burned away the last of my fear. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was justice. The night I received that anonymous email, something inside me shifted. For months, maybe even years, I had walked through life like a shadow of myself, hunched, silent, carrying the weight of Ethan's words. But now, for the first time, I felt the fire of purpose burning in my chest. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the child inside me. It was about every humiliation, every whispered insult, every night I had cried into my pillow, believing I was broken, and I would not cry anymore. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. My hair was unkempt, my eyes hollow from sleepless nights. But when I pulled it back, applied a touch of makeup, and slipped into a sleek black maternity dress I had bought months ago but never dared to wear, I saw a glimpse of the woman I wanted to become. Strong, unshaken, untouchable. The world would no longer see me as Ethan's barren ex-wife. They would see me as Isabella Hayes, mother, fighter, survivor. I started small. I organized the evidence, scanned copies into encrypted files, stored backups in places Ethan could never reach. I reached out to Dr. Harris, careful, cautious. His eyes widened when I showed him the documents. This is enough to bury him," he whispered. "Not yet," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. "We need more. We need the right time. When the truth comes out, it has to be in front of everyone, just like he humiliated me." Dr. Harris hesitated, then nodded. "I know a journalist. Someone who's been trying to expose him for years. If you're ready, I can make the introduction." I was ready, more ready than I had ever been. In the weeks that followed, I transformed. My apartment, once a place of tears, became a war room. Documents spread across the table, audio recordings labeled, timelines mapped. Every insult Ethan had thrown at me now fueled my determination. Every cruel smile from Claire became another reason to fight. And physically, I changed too. I walked taller, even with my swollen belly. I wore colors again, clothes that fit not just my body, but my new identity. When I entered the clinic or the office, people still whispered, but now their whispers felt different. Curious, even respectful. One afternoon, as I crossed the lobby of the Grand Aurora for a meeting, I saw Claire. She froze mid-step, her eyes widening. For a moment she didn't say a word, just stared at me, as if she didn't recognize the woman standing before her. "Claire," I said, my voice calm, steady, "you look tired." Her smile faltered, and for the first time I saw fear flicker in her eyes. She sensed it, that I wasn't the same Bella she used to toy with. I walked away without another word, my heels clicking against the marble floor, my belly leading the way like a banner of defiance. Inside me, my baby kicked. A reminder. A promise. This was no longer about survival, it was about victory. And when the time came, I would stand in the very place Ethan had tried to destroy me, the spotlight, the stage, the crowd, and I would make sure the truth burned brighter than all his lies. Because I was no longer the woman he had broken. I was the woman who would break him. The night of the second gala arrived like a storm I had been waiting for. This time, I wasn't the humiliated ex-wife stumbling onto a stage I didn't belong to. This time, I walked into the Grand Aurora Hotel with my head high, my belly full, my heart steady, I wore a deep crimson dress, bold and unapologetic, the color of fire and rebirth. People turned to stare, but their whispers no longer pierced me. They fueled me. Dr. Harris and the journalist he had introduced me to, Maya Collins, were already inside, waiting. Maya was sharp, relentless, her notebook always in hand. She had the files, the recordings, the documents that painted Ethan not as a successful philanthropist, but as a fraud, a criminal, a liar. And tonight, under the same chandeliers where Ethan had once tried to destroy me, the truth would finally burn him down. The gala unfolded as expected. Music, speeches, laughter. Ethan and Claire sat at the front again, basking in attention. He looked smug, untouchable. She sparkled, though I noticed the tension in her jaw, the way her hand clutched her glass a little too tightly. Then, the host's voice rang out. Tonight, we are joined by many who make this foundation possible. Ethan Miller, one of our most generous supporters, will now say a few words. Ethan rose, buttoning his jacket, his smile practiced and perfect. He strode to the stage, microphone in hand. "Good evening," he began, his voice smooth as silk. "It is always an honor to stand before you, celebrating the gift of family, of motherhood, of lies." Maya's voice cut through the hall. The room gasped. Maya stepped forward, her press badge glinting under the lights. A folder clutched in her hands. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you don't know is that Ethan Miller has been funding his donations with stolen money. Money laundered through shell companies, hidden in offshore accounts, funneled right back into his own pocket." The ballroom erupted in murmurs, confusion rippling through the crowd. Ethan's face stiffened, his smile faltering. "This is outrageous. Security." But Maya wasn't finished. She held up the documents, her voice firm. "We have contracts, transfers, proof that every dollar he claimed to give came from fraud. And it doesn't stop there. His own wife, Claire Bennett, has been covering for him, because she, too, benefits from this stolen empire." All eyes turned to Claire, her face drained of color. She stood abruptly, stammering, I didn't." But Maya cut her off. "We even have a recording. Would you like to hear it?" And then my voice filled the room. Claire's words, recorded at the clinic, played over the speakers. "If Ethan goes down, I don't go down with him. I have too much at stake." The ballroom exploded. Guests gasped, some stood, phones flashing as they recorded the chaos. Claire's mask shattered, her eyes wide, frantic, darting toward Ethan. "Ethan," she whispered desperately, "say something." But Ethan's composure was gone. He lunged for the microphone, shouting over the crowd, "Lies, all of it. She's making this up." I stepped forward then, my heels clicking against the marble floor, the crimson dress flowing behind me like a flame. The room hushed as I approached the stage, hand on my belly, voice steady. "No, Ethan, it's not lies, it's the truth. You destroyed me with your words, made me believe I was nothing. But tonight, everyone sees you for what you really are. A coward, a fraud, a man who built his empire on deceit." Ethan's face twisted with rage. "You think anyone will believe you? You're just a bitter ex-wife with no credibility." But before he could finish, uniformed officers entered the ballroom. The crowd parted as they strode toward the stage. One of them spoke firmly. "Ethan Miller, you're under arrest for fraud and money laundering." The gasp that followed was deafening. Cameras flashed, guests whispered, some even applauded. Claire shrieked, trying to cling to Ethan, but the officers pulled him away. And just like that, the man who once held my life in his hands was dragged out in handcuffs, his empire crumbling behind him. Claire stood frozen, tears streaking her makeup, her diamond necklace glinting mockingly against her trembling chest. For years, she had relished in my suffering. Tonight, she was the one left standing alone, broken, exposed. The host, flustered but determined, cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, let us remember why we are here tonight, not for one man's lies, but for the truth, for the strength of mothers, the resilience of women." Applause rose, louder than before. And to my shock, it was directed at me. I placed a hand on my belly, tears finally spilling, but this time they weren't tears of shame. They were tears of victory. Because I had won. Not just for myself, but for my child. Weeks later, Ethan's face was plastered across every newspaper, not as a philanthropist, but as a criminal. Claire vanished from the spotlight, her reputation shredded. And me? I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. Holding her in my arms, I felt whole for the first time. Complete. I wasn't Ethan's broken wife anymore. I was Isabella Hayes, mother, survivor, fighter, and my story had only just begun. It's been 6 months since that night at the Grand Aurora. 6 months since Ethan was led away in handcuffs, since Claire's face disappeared from every magazine cover. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night and wonder if it was all a dream. But then I hear the soft breathing of my daughter beside me, and I know it was real. Her name is Hope, because that's what she gave me. The first time I held her, tiny and warm in my arms, every wound inside me began to heal. The voices that once haunted me, Ethan's cruel laughter, Claire's mocking words, faded into silence. All I could hear was her heartbeat, steady and strong, reminding me that I had survived. That we had survived. Life isn't perfect. I still get stares when people realize there's no father in the picture. I still feel the sting of old scars when I pass by places tied to my past, but I no longer shrink under them. I no longer carry shame. Because I know now, I am not defined by what I lacked. I am defined by what I chose, and I chose to fight. I chose to stand. I chose to bring life into a world that once told me I couldn't. Dr. Harris still checks on me sometimes. Maya published the exposé that ended Ethan's empire, earning awards for her work. She tells me I'm stronger than most people she's ever met. I'm not sure if that's true, but when I look at Hope, I want to believe it. As for Ethan, he's awaiting trial. The newspapers say he'll face years in prison. Claire has vanished, rumored to be living abroad, far from the glittering lights she once craved. Sometimes I wonder if she ever thinks about me, about the friend she betrayed. But I don't waste time on her anymore. The past no longer owns me. Every morning, I rise with the sun, holding Hope close as we watch the city wake. And every night I whisper to her, "You are loved, you are wanted, you are proof that nothing is impossible." I don't know what the future holds. Maybe love will find me again, maybe it won't. But for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid of what comes next, because I've already walked through the fire. And I came out carrying light.